Sarah put the folder with reports in her desk drawer, put on her jacket, and left her office. She had a busy day and wanted to get home quickly, make hot tea with lemon, and cover herself with a soft blanket. On the way home, she was freezing from the drizzling rain and cold wind when she saw that the lights were on in all the windows of the apartment. She was frustrated and stopped outside. Sarah realized that her drunken husband was at home. As she worked closer, she was convinced of it. There was loud music coming from the open window. She could hear Kona swearing, but there was no one else in the apartment but him. He was already so drunk that he didn't look like a human being. The man's behavior was getting more and more wild. The young woman realized that if she came home now, she would listen to his claims until morning. Kona would argue, blaming his wife for all his problems. Sighing heavily, Sarah sat down on a cold, wet bench near the entrance. She didn't want to cry, but tears flowed down her cheeks. Suddenly, she heard Kona's angry voice. "Why the hell are you sitting there? Who are you waiting for?" The man crawled half out of the window, risking falling down. He was saying something indistinctly, cursing Sarah. "I'm coming," the woman said in a melancholy voice. The woman didn't get a chance to get some sleep that night. Kona yelled at her until morning like a madman, and only when the sun came up did he fall asleep at the kitchen table. Glancing at the clock, she realized there was no more time to sleep. After taking a shower, Sarah had some tea and began cleaning the apartment. She walked to work with a sad look on her face and with her eyes red from tears and a sleepless night. When Sarah was getting on the bus, she suddenly stumbled and fell into a huge puddle. All the contents of her bag fell out into the mud. Looking at her white coat covered with mud, the woman cried desperately. A crowd of indifferent, sleepy people quickly entered the bus, bypassing the unfortunate woman. Sarah heard a male voice beside her. "Don't cry. Let me help you." "No need," Sarah said, wiping away her tears. "You'd better hurry up or the bus will leave without you." "I'm in no hurry, and I can't leave such a beautiful girl in trouble," the man said with a smile. "I'm Joe. And what's your name?" "Sarah." "What a beautiful name," he said. "All right. Let's try to save your coat." The man deftly helped Sarah get up out of the puddle, shook off her coat as best he could, and began picking up the items that had fallen out of her bag. "What are we going to do next?" the man asked. "I don't know," the woman answered honestly. She realized she couldn't go to work in such a dirty coat, but she didn't want to go home either. Most likely, Kona had already woken up and started drinking alcohol again. It was his disease. Most likely, it was incurable. The woman had been trying to fight his addiction for 3 years now, but there was less and less hope that her husband would be able to get rid of this bad habit. "I'm not local. I live in a hotel not far from here. Let's go to the hotel. You can warm up and have some coffee, and I'll go to the store and buy some clean clothes for you." "No, I'm not comfortable going to the hotel with you," Sarah objected. "Don't refuse. I sincerely want to help you. If I fell in a puddle, would you walk past me, or would you stop and help me?" "Of course, I would help you, so let me help you." Sarah didn't understand why she agreed. Perhaps this sweet and cheerful man had caught her attention with his kind, cheerful guise. Or maybe she simply wanted someone to take care of her. "All right, let's go," the woman said with a smile, holding out her hand to the manual. Joe left for the mall, and Sarah took a shower, warmed herself up, and, after drinking coffee, sat down on a soft chair in front of the TV. She didn't realize what she was doing now, because she was supposed to be at her workplace, where her strict boss was waiting for her, demanding an urgent report. But she felt so cozy here, in this quiet place where there was no daily hustle and bustle. "I'm back," Joe shouted, trying to walk through the narrow door carrying huge bags. "There's a coat in this bag, and pants and warm socks in this bag. I hope I bought the right size." "Thank you," the woman said with embarrassment. But you didn't have to buy such an expensive coat. A cheap jacket would have been enough. But thanks anyway. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise. One more thing. I ordered lunch at the restaurant. I didn't have breakfast today. Will you join me? I ordered kite a lot, and I won't be able to eat it all by myself, okay? Sarah said with a smile. The woman spent the entire day with Joe. The man told her about his interesting life filled with colorful emotions and adventures. Joe traveled a lot to different countries. He was cheerful and could talk about a lot of interesting things, while the woman could tell him only about her boring life. So she just kept quiet so as not to ruin this wonderful day. Soon, the evening came. Sarah realized she had to go home, but she was so reluctant to leave the hotel. I have to go. The woman smiled sadly. Sarah, I wanted to tell you something, the man said, putting his arm around his guest. Feeling Joe's warmth next to her, Sarah forgot about everything. I'm leaving tonight, Joe said sadly, pulling open the curtains on the windows. Sarah wrinkled her nose at the light of the bright sun and yawned. At that moment, she didn't even want to think about the fact that he would be leaving tonight, and this meeting wouldn't happen again. She was happy here and now. She wanted them to be the only people left in this world. Sarah, I don't know anything about your life. You don't tell me about it, and I don't want to ask you unnecessary questions. Tell me, are you capable of doing reckless things that could change your fate? I don't know. Come with me. You will never regret your decision. I've only known you for a day, but I don't want to part with you. This has never happened to me before. I guess that's what love is. That's a very unexpected suggestion, the woman whispered. Now I have to leave for a few hours on business. Please stay at the hotel, and then we'll leave together. But I need to take my ID and at least pack a suitcase, the woman said in confusion. Okay, tell me the address where I need to pick you up. No need. I'll come here myself, Sarah said quietly. All right, I'll be waiting. Joe wrapped his arms around the woman. He didn't want to let her go even for a moment. The man didn't know why this ordinary woman had attracted him, but he realized he wanted to spend the rest of his days with her. Sarah headed home. She felt happy for the first time in years. The young woman had already forgotten about attention from men. Kona had not given gifts for a long time. He didn't say tender words, and in general, paid no attention to his wife. He was a nice guy before he started drinking alcohol. Sometimes he stopped drinking and was in an exhausted state for a long time. The man would beg his wife's forgiveness for this behavior. After that, their relationship would get better, but soon he would start drinking again. Perhaps Sarah would have divorced him earlier, but she felt sorry for her husband and couldn't make this important decision. His parents had recently died, and the woman realized that if he was left all alone, he wouldn't survive. But today, she realized that her life was passing quickly, and she would no longer be as young as she used to be. Finally, she made that life-changing decision. Now she will take her ID, pack her suitcase, and start a new life with Joe. Where have you been? Kona asked in a depressed voice. The man was sitting on the edge of the bed with his arms around his head. Sarah guessed that he had probably run out of money since he was completely sober. The woman ignored her husband's question and quickly began putting her belongings into her suitcase. Do you have any money? Kona asked hopefully. No, I paid the bills 2 days ago, she replied unconsciously. Where are you going? Her husband asked in surprise. I'm going on a business trip, Sarah said quietly, lowering her gaze. She couldn't tell him she was leaving him and going somewhere with the man she'd met this morning. Kona sighed heavily and lay down on the couch. He tried to sleep, but his head ached. Suddenly, he realized that Sarah had never been on a business trip. Her position had nothing to do with traveling. Sarah, where are you going? Kona ran out into the hallway after her. I told you, I'm going on a business trip. Don't lie. Are you leaving me? The man asked, frightened. Please, you don't have to do that. I can't live like this anymore. I'm sorry, but we can't live together anymore. Perhaps after I leave, you will find a woman who can help you, and with her, you will become a decent person and husband." Lowering her head, Sarah took a seat on the ottoman. She had hoped that she would be able to avoid this unpleasant conversation. But no, the woman still had to explain everything to her husband. It's probably for the best. At least now he knows the truth and can start a new life, too. Tears rolled down Kona's cheeks. He looked at his beloved woman and couldn't believe this was the end. He couldn't let Sarah leave him, because he clearly realized he couldn't live without her. "Darling, sweetheart, don't do this. I realize I've hurt you. I promise I'll never drink alcohol ever again. We can become a happy family again. We're still young. I'm sorry I was a weak manual. I couldn't accept the death of my parents. And after they died, I started drinking a lot. It won't happen again. Don't leave me. I will die without you." Kona knelt down, hugged his wife's knees, and began kissing her feet. Sarah silently swallowed her tears. She understood that something she had feared so much had happened. The woman could not leave him alone in this situation, for if she left, she would ruin his life. "Get up," she said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." She took a seat in a chair by the window and cried quietly, unable to say anything. She couldn't stop thinking about Joe, who was waiting for her at the hotel, and it hurt her even more. But she couldn't do otherwise. She couldn't leave a man who needed her help and support. "You need to get some rest," Kona said quietly. "I'll clean the apartment now. Then I'll make us dinner. And I'll go to work tomorrow. And I'll work as hard as I can. I promise you'll never regret believing me. Do you believe me?" "I believe you," Sarah whispered sadly. At this time, Joe was standing at the window in the hotel, waiting for Sarah. His plane had left half an hour ago, but the man couldn't leave without her. He still had hope that she would still come to him. The man waited until morning, but as soon as the sun came up, he realized that Sarah would never appear in his life again. Sighing heavily, he picked up his suitcase and headed to the airport. After meeting this special woman, he felt frustrated. After all, it was only now that he understood what mutual feelings were. Usually, he was the one who left women and stopped communicating with them. But now things had worked the opposite way. Sarah had been trying to forget Joe for a month. At first, it seemed to the woman that it was just an ordinary romantic adventure. But over time, she realized that the memories of him were constantly in her head. Every day she regretted more and more that she had so foolishly parted ways with this wonderful man. Kona kept his promise. He didn't drink for almost a month, but he never brought home the money he had earned. He was lying on the couch more and more often, complaining about not feeling well. One day, coming home from work in the evening, Sarah saw that all the windows in the apartment had lights on again. It meant only one thing. Kona had gotten drunk again. The woman stopped outside, lowered her head, and cried. Realizing that she didn't want to go home, Sarah decided to go to her friend. Quietly entering the apartment to pack her belongings, the woman saw Kona sitting in the kitchen hugging a bottle of rum and cursing himself. The woman quietly walked into the room, packed a small suitcase, and ran out of the apartment. "Hi," Josie said with a smile when she saw her friend. "Is he drunk again?" "Yeah. I'm not going back to him again. I can't tolerate this abuse anymore," Sarah said gloomily. "Glad you finally realized it," Josie replied with a wink. "Take off your jacket and come into the kitchen. Let's have dinner now, and then I'll tell you about my ambitious plans." They had been friends since Sarah arrived at the orphanage. Josie was a couple of years older than her and immediately started helping the little girl who couldn't defend herself and only cried because of the constant insults from the other children. Josie had always been a brave, determined woman, and now, many years later, she hasn't changed at all. "I inherited a house from my grandfather. I decided to sell it and start my own business. I have tremendous plans, but I can't do it without your help. You're a good accountant. I'm sure you'll be able to calculate everything correctly." "What business? What are you talking about? Sarah said with a grin. Don't laugh. I'm sure we can do it right. First, I want to open a small beauty salon. I have experience in that business. I've been a hairdresser for 5 years. What if it doesn't work out? Then you'll lose both your money and your house. It will work if you help. You're very clever. Josie said insistently. Okay, I'll help you. Sarah agreed. No, it won't work that way. You have to not just help me, but run the business with me. You have to quit your job. Why are you offering me such a thing? Sarah objected. I need my salary to survive. Don't worry about that. We have enough money for the first time. By the way, you can move into my apartment. Just think what awaits you at your job. A miserable salary and daily work with a short lunch break. And I'm offering you a chance to start a completely different life. In a few years, you'll be able to buy your own apartment. Let's not be in such a hurry. I'll calculate everything first, think it over, and then give you an answer. Okay, Josie said excitedly. I knew you wouldn't say nama. In the morning, Sarah felt unwell. She had a headache and nausea. Realizing she couldn't go to work in that condition, the woman went back to bed. Maybe I ate something wrong yesterday, Sarah suggested. I've never felt this bad before. Maybe you're pregnant, Josie suggested. No, Kona and I haven't had intimacy in a while. Suddenly, the woman fell silent, thinking of Joe. At first, she was frightened, but then she rejoiced, for she had dreamed of having a baby for so long. But now she was not in the best financial situation. She didn't know how to give birth and raise a baby, because she didn't even have her own place, let alone money. Why are you smiling so sweetly? Are you really pregnant? Josie asked curiously. I don't know. Maybe. I need to see a doctor, Sarah said modestly. She never had any secrets from her best friend, so she told her about meeting Joe, how she fell in love with him the day she first met him, and how she wanted to travel with him, but couldn't leave Kona. Dear, that was really stupid, Josie said angrily. Do you know how to find that man? No, Sarah smiled sadly. I don't even know what city he lives in. We've been talking all day. Joe told me a lot of interesting things about his life, but as it turns out, I know absolutely nothing about him except his name. Okay, don't worry about it. If you're pregnant, you will definitely give birth. Don't make my mistakes. When I was young, I had an abortion, and now I regret it. My husband divorced me and left me alone with this problem. I'll help you with everything. Just promise me that I'll be godmother to your baby. I promise, Sarah said with a smile and hugged her friend. She felt very calm around Josie. Josie was more like a big sister to her than a friend. Sarah knew that without Josie's support, her life would be much more difficult. The next day, the woman went to the doctor, who confirmed the pregnancy. Congratulations, you are 4 weeks pregnant, the doctor said. Thank you, Sarah replied with embarrassment. Is it a boy or a girl? Oh, it's too early to talk about that, the doctor replied with a laugh. We'll find out later. Sarah came out of the hospital and realized there were important changes ahead of her. She needed to stop being afraid of the consequences and start making changes in her life. Josie was right. They needed to take a risk to create a business and change their standard of living. So, a friend asked, I have 2 pieces of news, and they're both good. The woman smiled. Great. Tell me everything, because I'm really worried. The first news is that I'm really pregnant, and the second news is I think you have enough money to start a business. Yay, Josie shouted, hugging her friend. Are you going to quit your job? Yes, I'll write my resignation letter tomorrow, Sarah promised. 6 months later, the friends were sitting in a cozy little office. They had succeeded thanks to Josie's determination and courage, and Sarah's professional skills. Obviously, the profit from the business wasn't much yet, but still, they were already making money, and that gave them hope that in the future, They could open a small chain of beauty salons. I don't know what I'll do without your help, Josie said worriedly. But I'm not going on maternity leave forever. Sarah laughed. I'll be on maternity leave for a couple of months, and then we can hire a nanny for a few hours a day. You're right. I've been thinking about that too. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I met Kona outside the building last night. He was waiting for you. I chased him away and told him not to come back. Josie said, You did the right thing. The woman replied with a frown. I think when he drinks alcohol, he gets crazy. After the last conversation we had, I don't even want to hear from him. Is that when he suggested you leave the baby at the maternity ward? Josie said with a grin. How could he even think of that? Yeah, he said he'd forgive the infidelity if I abandoned the baby, and then we'd live like before. You know, he needs a strong woman. A woman who can control him. Maybe then he'll become a normal manual. He's not a bad guy, but he's ruined his life by drinking. Josie said, Maybe you're right. Sarah agreed. Sarah felt slightly unwell, so she hurried to finish her work and went home. She was living in Josie's apartment. Her friend said she could live with her as long as she wanted, even for the rest of her life. Her apartment was big, but there was no happiness or joy in it. When Sarah saw Kona near the entrance, she wanted to turn around and walk away, but it was too late. Her ex-husband had already noticed her. Why did you come again? The woman asked angrily. Sarah, don't chase me away. Listen to me. Kona said softly. If you want to voice your silly suggestion again, don't even try. No, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I agree. Please come back home. Agree to what? Did I tell you any conditions? The woman asked in surprise. I agree that your baby will live with us. The man uttered with hope, looking at Sarah. I can't live alone. I don't feel good alone. Have you forgotten what you promised my sick mom? You said you would never leave me. I remember that. But you promised her too that you wouldn't drink and that you would earn money for the family. I'll stop drinking. I promise. Kona said confidently. And I will never approach you for cheating. Kona, enough. I know you won't keep your promise. We're not living together anymore. Stop following me, okay? The man said quietly. Or can you borrow me some money until payday? I can't even buy bread. Yeah. Take it. Sarah held out a few dollars to him. Please don't come here again. Turning around, she walked quickly into the building. She felt uneasy after such conversations. On the one hand, she felt sorry for Kona, but on the other hand, she realized that she couldn't go on like this. She couldn't sacrifice herself and take care of him for the rest of her life. Thinking of Joe, the woman cried again. She still couldn't forgive herself for not going to the hotel that day. After all, she could have at least said goodbye to him and taken his phone number. Maybe she could create a real family with him. Sarah looked sadly out the window of the maternity ward, watching the rain dripping down on the cold ground. When she saw a man with a gorgeous bouquet of roses approaching the building, she frowned, trying to hold back tears. There were many women in the maternity ward. Husbands or boyfriends visited all of them, but no one came to see Sarah except for Josie. Happy fathers brought flowers to their wives, wrote romantic letters, and one of them even organized fireworks yesterday. He was happy about the birth of his daughter, but Joe didn't even know he had a daughter. 2 days ago, Sarah gave birth to a cute baby girl. It was already clear that Anna looked a lot like her daddy. Realizing that they would never see each other, the woman felt depressed. Laura, your husband is here, Sarah said with a smile. He brought the flowers again. I'm going to scold him now. Laura, a girl who had also recently given birth to a baby, shouted. He's already spent a lot of money on flowers. Why bring them to me every day? It's his way of expressing joy and gratitude for having a baby. Sarah explained. You're right. Jack has dreamed of a daughter for years. We have 3 sons, and he said if I gave him a girl, he'd be over the moon. Laura said boastfully. He has invited all our relatives to visit. He wants to throw a lavish party. I don't know how you're going to live alone with a baby. You're a miserable woman. You're wrong, Sarah said angrily. 2 days ago I became the happiest woman in the world. I finally have a meaning in my life. And believe me, not having a man around doesn't spoil that happiness. Sometimes it's better to live without them. Not everyone is as caring as your Jack. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Sarah wasn't offended. She had accepted her status as a single mom a long time ago. It was her choice, and she had absolutely no regrets. Sarah, why did you divorce your husband when you were pregnant? A young girl, Valerie, asked in bewilderment. I mean, you did it consciously. Why, yes, consciously. Girls, let's change the topic of conversation. I'm doing fine in my life. I just don't want to live with my husband. Is that his baby? Laura asked. Yes, Sarah answered confidently. She was sick of everyone discussing her life. So she put on a robe and went outside. Sarah wanted to be discharged as soon as possible so that she would not have to listen non-stop to other women talking about how wonderful their husbands were and how miserable she was. Finally, the day of discharge came. When Sarah found out that she and Laura were being discharged on the same day, she was upset because Laura's husband had prepared a discharge celebration. Jack had invited a crowd of relatives and wanted to release 100 balloons into the sky. Sarah imagined how she would walk out of the maternity hospital with Josie and the baby and felt sad, but she couldn't change anything, so she had to be happy with what she had. Sarah, finally. A happy Josie shouted, rushing over to her friend. Where's Anna? The midwife will bring Anna out now and hand her over to us. That's the way it's supposed to be in the maternity ward. Sarah said with a smile. Listen, who else is being discharged here? Apparently, some important woman. There is a crowd with balloons and flowers, a cameraman, a photographer, and even a limousine. Josie said in surprise. Laura's husband organized it. Sarah explained. It's just that she has a loving husband. Some women are lucky, Josie said. Seeing the midwife coming out with the newborn baby, Josie ran over to her, handed her the flowers, and gently took Anna in her arms. This is what real happiness looks like, the woman whispered, cradling the baby in her arms. Josie walked briskly toward the exit of the maternity ward, while Sarah tried to keep up with her carrying a heavy bag. Miss, let me help you. A guy standing at the entrance with flowers and balloons offered with a smile. It was clear that he was Laura's relative. No need, Sarah said. Our car's close by. The woman looked at the guy who had offered to help and froze in place. It was Joe standing in front of her. You? The woman asked quietly. Me. At first, Joe was confused by the unexpected encounter, but quickly came to his senses and said, Do you need any help? If not, I'll go. My sister is about to come out of the maternity ward. No, I don't need any help. Sarah lowered her head and slowly worked down the steps. She was so confused that she couldn't say anything. She really wanted to hug him and tell him he had become a father, but Joe's gaze was so cold. He looked at her with contempt. By the way, congratulations, Joe shouted with a smirk. She didn't answer anything. The woman walked quickly to the car, where her friend and her daughter were waiting for her. Sarah felt like she was doing something wrong again, that she was making another mistake. But she didn't know how to act differently in this situation. Did something happen? What's wrong with you? Josie asked, looking at her friend. I'm fine. Let's go home. The woman tried to look calm, but the unexpected encounter with Joe didn't allow her to calm down. His contemptuous gaze struck Sarah to the core. For people only look that way at traitors. Hugging Anna, she tried to forget him, realizing they would never be together again. After her behavior, he could hardly believe that Anna was his daughter, and Sarah didn't want to probe anything, because most likely, Joe didn't really care about the baby. Are you upset because of Laura? Josie suggested. The women put Anna to bed and went to the kitchen to have some tea. Don't be upset. No, that's not the reason. I saw him in the maternity ward, said Sarah. Who? Josie asked in surprise, not understanding what was going on with her friend. Joe, Anna's father. The woman confessed. When? I mean, where? Wait, did you see Joe? He was one of Laura's guests. He was standing at the entrance to the maternity ward with flowers waiting for her. But why didn't you talk to him? Josie asked indignantly. We had a very short conversation. He looked at me with contempt and then congratulated me on the birth of the baby. The expression on his face told me everything without words. What on earth have you done? Why didn't you tell him everything? How do you imagine that? That's only in movies. But unfortunately, we are in real life, not in a romantic drama. He almost doesn't know me. All he knows is that I'm a frivolous woman and a liar. I need to forget about him. Nothing will change. You said he was a guest of that girl, Laura, right? Josie clarified, ignoring her friend's words. Yeah, he said he was waiting for his sister. Do you have Laura's contacts? I gave her our business card. She said she would visit our beauty salon soon. She wanted to change her haircut and her overall style. But I don't have her phone number. Wait, why would you need that? I was just asking. Anyway, forget it. You have a new chapter in your life. Don't feel sad because of men. Forget about them. You need to enjoy your new life and take care of the baby. You're right, Sarah said with a smile. She's so vulnerable, so tender. I only want to hold her in my arms all the time and warm her with my warmth. You have at least a few years to hold her in your arms, but over time, it's going to get harder to do that as the years go by. Josie laughed. Taking care of her daughter, lack of sleep and fatigue helped Sarah forget about Joe. It was hard for the woman because she still had to take care of business matters. Josie didn't know anything at all about accounting. Hello, we came to you on Sarah's recommendation. She is the owner of this salon. A pretty blonde woman said with a smile. Josie almost choked on her tea. She immediately realized that Laura was standing in front of her. Josie had been waiting for her for almost 2 months. Come in, please, Josie said with a smile. You must be Laura. Sarah told me you two met at the maternity ward. Yes, Sarah left me your business card. She praised this salon, so I decided to come here with my husband. Jack just needs a haircut, but I need the full range of hair care services. Great, Josie said. Please come to the ladies' area. There the hairstylist will offer you the best hair treatments and then get to work, while I will do a haircut for your husband. Thank you, the woman said arrogantly, glancing at Josie. The woman realized there was no way to have a normal conversation with this lady, but she hoped that Laura's husband would be more talkative, unlike his wife. Would you like a cup of coffee or tea? Josie asked Jack. Thank you. I'd love to have a cup of coffee, the man said with a smile. It's been raining since morning, and I'm always sleepy in this weather. I was going to relax at home on my day off, but my wife decided to go to the beauty salon. Josie brought a cup of flavored coffee and candy. She was very afraid to start this conversation, but she knew she wouldn't get another chance. Jack, my friend, or rather, my sister, was in the same maternity ward as your wife. They were discharged on the same day. I saw how magnificently you greeted your daughter and wife. That's right. I was so excited about the birth of my daughter that I was willing to do anything, Jack said with a sincere smile. The thing is, there was a man among your guests. I guess his name was Joe. He is your wife's relative. Yes, Laura has a cousin. His name is Joe. He's rarely at home, but he still managed to make it to this holiday. He works on a cruise ship as a captain. Why do you ask? Jack was confused. The thing is, my sister and your relative used to know each other. They saw each other that day outside the maternity ward. Joe gave her his phone number, but she lost it. Sarah was very upset about it. It's not a problem, Jack said calmly, and taking a cell phone out of his pocket said, "Write down his number and give it to your sister. Thank you so much. I'm sure she'll be overjoyed." She realized that she had done the wrong thing. Josie had one rule in her life. She never lied to anyone but for the happiness of a loved one. She could break any rules. While dialing Joe's phone number, Josie was very nervous. She was mentally praying that it would work out. She realized that the man probably wouldn't even talk to her and would just disconnect the call. "Hello." The man answered in a gruff voice. "Hello. I need to talk to Joe." Josie said hesitantly, "That's me. And who are you?" "I'm Sarah's friend. Do you remember her? You met her at the maternity ward about 2 months ago. What do you want?" The man said irritably, "You'll probably think I'm crazy, but I believe you have a right to know the truth. And the truth is that you have recently become a father. Sarah has given birth to a daughter." "What the hell are you talking about?" Joe asked angrily. "I've only seen your friend once in my life, not counting the meeting at the maternity ward. Do you expect that I will pay you money? It won't work that way. You and Sarah came up with a good plan, but I'm not stupid. Ladies, neither Sarah nor I want your money. Sarah doesn't even know I'm calling you. I just told you the truth, and you can decide what to do with that information. Goodbye." Josie said and disconnected the call. After this conversation, the woman became upset. She realized that Joe would hardly be happy to hear the news, but she didn't expect him to react so negatively. She and Sarah didn't really know what kind of person he was. Just one romantic encounter was unlikely to reveal the man's true face. "Well, that's okay. At least I tried to do something," the woman said, trying to justify her actions. Early in the morning, Josie was awakened by a phone call. Upon waking up, she didn't realize it was Joe calling her. "I'll be in your city tomorrow. Where can I find Sarah?" the man asked sadly. "First, come to our beauty salon, and we'll talk there. After yesterday's conversation, I'm not sure you should talk to my friend." Josie replied rudely, "You are confusing me. Why did you call me if you don't want me to talk to Sarah? Let's talk when we meet. Write down the address of the beauty salon." Josie told the address and quickly hung up the phone when she saw Sarah walking into her room. "Who called you so early?" the sleepy woman asked in surprise. "It's not even 6 a.m. yet. A client called me. She needs her hair done right away." Josie lied. The woman wasn't sure if her decision was right. She didn't expect Joe to be so distrustful of the news about the baby. The woman didn't want Sarah to be affected by the situation, because she was going through a very difficult time. The next day, Joe arrived at the beauty salon. Josie talked to him without any emotion. "As you can see, my friend and I have our own business, and we don't need your money. Sarah loves you. She didn't come to the hotel that day because she had some big problems. During her pregnancy, she didn't dare to find you because she was sure she would never see you again. But that meeting at the maternity ward helped her remember the feelings she had when she first met you. I see her crying sometimes, making sure no one sees her. I understand that you have doubts about the baby, but Hannah is your daughter. Now I have no doubt about it, for she looks so much like you. I'm sorry if I offended you yesterday, but please, try to understand that I don't get such news every day. At first, I wanted to ignore what you said, but I thought about it at night and couldn't calm down the whole day. So I decided to talk to you. Can I see Sarah? I guess we need to talk." Joe said calmly. "Yes, that's exactly why I found you." Sarah put Hannah to bed and walked over to the window. She had a dream about Joe again tonight. The woman didn't know how long it would last. She didn't realize when she would be able to forget this man. A quiet knock on the door distracted her from her sad thoughts. Quietly closing the door to the room where her daughter was sleeping, she hurried to open the front door. When she saw Joe on the doorstep, she turned pale and rubbed her eyes. "Hi," the man said with a smile. "Keep your voice down. My baby just fell asleep. Can I come in?" he asked in a whisper. Sarah stepped aside. letting the man into the apartment. She was confused and didn't know what to do. Just a moment ago, she had been thinking about him, realizing that she would hardly ever see him again. And now he was standing in front of her, so close and yet so far away at the same time. "How did you find me?" Sarah asked, not understanding anything at all. "It doesn't matter. Please explain what's going on." "I was told you gave birth to a daughter." "My daughter." "Is that true?" "Yes, that's true. But I have no claims on you. I don't need your money, and I will never demand anything from you. It was my decision to keep the pregnancy." At that moment, a baby cried in the room. Leaving the man in the kitchen, Sarah rushed to the baby. Joe quietly followed her into the room, and upon seeing the baby girl, he realized that Josie was right. The baby looked a lot like Joe. "Your friend told me the truth." The man smiled as he looked intently at his daughter. The girl unconsciously smiled at him, as if she was happy to see her daddy. "She smiled at me," Joe said admiringly. "Does she really understand and feel anything at that age?" "Of course, she feels everything." The woman laughed. "When she was in the womb, she already understood and felt everything." "Do you want to hold her in your arms?" "Yes." Joe took his daughter in his arms, not yet fully realizing it was his baby. But when he saw the small birthmark on Anna's neck, he smiled. "I have the same birthmark," Joe said. "Except mine's a little bigger." "I know," the woman said. "Anna looks a lot like you. I tried to forget our meeting, but she reminded me of you 24 hours a day." "Sarah, why did you change your mind about traveling with me then?" "I waited for you until morning and hoped you would come to me." The woman realized that she needed to explain everything to Joe. She loved the man and didn't want to hide anything from him. Sarah told everything about her ex-husband, his addiction, and the fact that she couldn't leave him that night. "At that moment, I didn't think about the fact that I didn't even have your phone number. And when I tried to find you, I realized that I didn't know anything about you except your name. A month later, I found out I was pregnant and immediately made the decision to leave my husband. That baby helped me realize that I was doing a lot of things wrong and that it was time to change my life." "Why didn't you tell me everything at the maternity ward?" Joe asked. "Did you see the expression on your face? I thought you were going to destroy me with your judgmental look. But how was I supposed to look at you, and what else could I think? And how could Josie find me if you couldn't?" "I don't know anything about that," the woman said frankly. "She didn't tell me anything. She likes all sorts of secrets." "Will you come with me?" Joe asked suddenly. Sarah looked at him questioningly. She didn't understand what he was suggesting. "I suggest you move in with me. After we met, I was anxious the whole year. At first, I thought I'd forget about you quickly, but then I realized I'd fallen in love with you. This is the first time this has ever happened to me." The man walked over to her, put his arm around her shoulders, and pulled her against him. They both felt like the happiest people in the world at that moment. Sarah really wanted to say yes, but the fear of the unknown stopped her. Besides, she felt that she would betray Josie by leaving her alone. After all, her friend would not be able to cope with their joint business alone. Josie was the only person who helped and supported her in all situations. Sarah just couldn't leave her alone. "This is a very unexpected suggestion. I can't just say yes right away. Leave everything and go away. Let's not be in a hurry, especially since Anna is still just a baby. She's too young for this kind of traveling." "So you are suggesting we wait until our daughter grows up? Then we wait until Josie can run the business on her own." "But when are we going to live?" Joe said nervously. The woman was silent. She really wanted to go away with him, but common sense prevented her from committing this reckless act. She wanted to get to know him better, to understand what kind of person he was. After all, love alone was not enough to make such an important decision and stay with him for the rest of her life. She wasn't alone now, and first of all, she needed to think about her daughter's well-being. "I'm not going to rush you," the man said resentfully. I'll be in your city for another 3 days. You have time to think it over. Joe kissed Anna, sleeping in his arms. He gently put his daughter in bed and silently walked towards the exit of the apartment. Sarah was silent as well. She didn't know what else she could say. Perhaps he was right. She should think it over calmly before making this important decision. As soon as Josie entered the apartment, Sarah immediately started yelling at her. "Josie, why didn't you tell me you found him? You should have at least told me he was coming." Sarah exclaimed indignantly. "I thought we were friends, and there were no secrets between us." "Sorry," Josie replied with a frown. "At first, I wanted to tell you about my plan, but then I was afraid you would stop me from looking for Anna's father. I mean, I only wanted the best for you and your daughter. Did he hurt you?" "No." Sarah told her friend the details of her conversation with Joe, that she didn't know what to do in this situation, and that she loved Joe, but she wasn't ready to leave everything and move to another city with the baby. "I think he is rushing things too much," Josie said. "He probably loves you, but you need to get used to each other. You need to calm down and have a serious talk with him. Tomorrow I have the day official. I'll babysit Anna, and you should go and see Joe and talk to him. You two need to spend some time together and discuss everything calmly." Sarah didn't argue with her friend. She called Joe and arranged a meeting with him, which reminded her of the feelings she had previously had for him. The woman realized that she didn't want to lose him again. After all, he was just an ordinary man and would hardly wait for her for the rest of his life. "Hello," Joe said with a smile and held out a bouquet of white lilies to the woman. "How did you know these were my favorite flowers?" Sarah said excitedly. "Did Josie tell you?" "No, you told me that yourself when we were talking about why all women like roses." "Yes, I remember that," Sarah said quietly. She was pleased that he remembered it, even though it had been over a year since they'd met. "I couldn't sleep again this night, and I was thinking about you and our daughter. You know, it's so unusual to realize I'm a father. I immediately felt some sense of responsibility. I understand you are scared to take this big step, but I promise you that I will never hurt you. Sarah, you won't regret coming with me. Please try to understand that I have a responsible position at work, and I won't be able to move to this city. Besides, I have a big apartment, a fancy car, and a nice summer house, but I don't have a wife." The man took her hand and carefully put the ring on her finger, which he had been clutching in his hand all this time. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "I'll go with you." In the evening, Joe had an unpleasant conversation with his cousin Laura. He decided to share his joy and happiness with her. He told her that his daughter and niece had been born on the same day and were in the same maternity ward. "Are you talking about Sarah now?" Laura asked. "Seriously? Wait, what makes you think it's your baby? Joe, you don't seem like a stupid person. Do you understand what you're doing? Joe, this woman has a husband. It's her husband's baby. Enough." The man stopped her. "You can think and say whatever you want, but I know for sure that Anna is my daughter." "Joe, are you out of your mind? She told everyone in the maternity ward that it's her husband's baby." Laura shouted. "I will never accept that sneaky woman into our family." "I don't expect you to accept her," Joe said. "I love her, and that's enough for me. At least take a DNA test and make sure you are the father of that baby." Laura continued. "No, let your husband prove he's a father of your kids. I trust my woman," Joe shouted and, taking his jacket, walked out of his cousin's apartment, slamming the door loudly. A year had passed. Sarah and Joe had been living together for a while. He was right. She didn't regret believing his words and moving in with him. The man was taking care of his family in ways she never even dreamed of. "Girls, I'm home." Hearing her husband's voice in the hallway, Sarah rushed to greet him. "Hi," the woman said excitedly. "Anna and I missed you." "I miss you too, but there's nothing I can do. That's the kind of job I have. What's new?" The man inquired. I got a call from Josie today. She invited us to her wedding. She said she was very happy, and she is 3 months pregnant. I thought it was strange. Sarah said in a confused tone, Honey, why do you find it strange? A young woman expecting a baby and getting married. Aren't you happy for her? Joe replied with a laugh. I can never understand the woman's logic. The thing is, she was diagnosed with infertility a long time ago. How is that possible? Josie didn't even hope to become a mother. Everything happened the way God wanted it to happen. I trust him more than the doctors. So, when's the wedding? I need to know in advance so I don't have to go on a business trip. We have to go to her the day after tomorrow. Sarah said, Yeah, your friend really knows how to surprise everyone. The man laughed. Sarah had no idea that the biggest surprise was ahead of them. Josie promised to meet them at the airport. Sarah saw a tall man in an expensive business suit standing next to her. Mentally happy for her friend, she hurried to hug her. But when Sarah approached Josie, she stopped and fell silent. The man turned out to be her ex-husband Kona. The man's appearance had completely changed. He had turned from a miserable alcoholic into an attractive man. Looking at him, it was hard to believe that he had been drinking alcohol for months, walking around in dirty clothes. What are you doing here? Sarah asked quietly, turning to Kona. Meet Kona, Josie said solemnly. I'm introducing you guys again because this is not the Kona you've known for years. He's a completely different man now. He is no longer a loser, but the senior manager of a beauty salon chain, and my future husband. You really surprised me. I'm truly happy for you both, Sarah said with a smile. In the evening, Sarah asked Josie why she had started communicating with Kona. After all, she had always been very squeamish about alcoholics and avoided them. Josie, I don't want to offend you with my question, but I'm really curious. Were you in love with Kona before, when he and I were still living together? You simply didn't want to tell me that. Sarah asked her friend. No, Josie said. 6 months ago, I found him drunk outside my building. It was freezing outside then, and he was lying on the ground near the bench. I couldn't wake him up for a long time, and when he finally woke up, he kept whispering your name. I felt so sorry for him. I dragged him home and put him to bed. In the morning, we talked for a long time. I realized that no one wanted to help this man, so I offered him a job at our salon. And over time, I realized that he was a wonderful manual. After another month, we realized we fell in love. I hope you don't judge me for that. No, of course not, Sarah said, hugging her friend and resting her head on her shoulder. I'm really happy for you. Do you think I wasn't worried about him? I thought about him and you every day. I realized how hard it was for you to be alone, and now I'm happy that both you and I are happy. I can finally see happiness in your eyes.